Okay, there we go. All right, good morning to everyone. Hope you enjoyed JP being with us last weekend. We're really excited about him coming. And it looks like their plan is to try to be here before school starts in August. So maybe as early as 1st of August. We told him if he wanted to come earlier, he could. But that's probably the time frame because he's trying to finish some things up where he is. He's actually already doing this, training some others to be able to do the things he's been doing. And so I really appreciate him doing that and trying to work that out before he leaves. But we really think that what he brings is going to help us in so many ways. Understand his first role is to motivate the congregation in evangelism. And out of that, then hopefully to be able to reach a broad range of people across the socioeconomic scale, across the ethnic scale, throughout our community, to be able to reach them, because we have the entire socioeconomic scale, the entire ethnic spectrum right around this building. Most people will drive 20 minutes to go to anything, to go to a movie, anything like that in an urban setting. Many do more than that. If you draw a 20-minute circle around this building, that's a lot of people and a lot of potential. But even if you draw a 10-minute circle around this building, you still have such a wide area to draw from going up into New Tampa, into west of Bruceby Downs here, down to Fowler, the college students on the USF campus, all these apartment complexes around us. You have the entire spectrum here, and you have it from young to old, all in here. So it's just, the potential is fantastic. It's a potential that we've tapped before, and it's time we get busy trying to tap again and trying to accomplish that. So he's going to help us in a lot of ways. This is what he's committed to. He wants to do this. He's really not interested in spending time in the pulpit. He'll be doing some of that. He wants to spend it in teaching people. That's what we're looking for. All right, I ran across an interesting article. Who sent this to me? I think Eric sent it to me. Eric's always sending us stuff. And Eric Sanders is as voracious a reader as anybody I've known. In fact, I think Eric learned to speed read, if I'm not mistaken. So he's always finding stuff. This is entitled, "Less Than Half of Americans Are Members of Houses of Worship," surveys say. Now, we'd already looked at percentages of similar to this, but it was just interesting, several things it said in here. It says, and we've known this, a growing number have lost faith in organized religion. That's been going on a long time. People say they believe in God, or people say they're a Christian, but have no interest in being a part of a church as such. They've come to have a distaste for organized religion. I share their distaste for most organized religion from that standpoint, that it's centering upon Christ or what the church should be. It simply doesn't do that. For the first time since the late 1930s, fewer than half of Americans say they belong to a church. And that's really what this article is about. People who say they hold member in a church or a synagogue or a mosque. 47% of Americans now say they belong to a house of worship, down from 70% in the mid-1990s and down 50%. It was 50% in 2019. Now it's down to 47. This is all, by the way, I think Gallup is doing this poll. The polling giant has been measuring church membership since 1937, when nearly 3/4 of the population, 73%, reported membership in a house of worship. 3/4 of the people in the country had membership somewhere. For much of that time, membership remained at about 70%, but when do you think this began to significantly decline? when since 1937 do you think it started to significantly decline? All right, 70s. Anybody else got a guess? Huh? 80s. You're getting closer. 1999 is when it really began to drop off the edge of the table. Now that's amazing to me because there had been a decline. It seemed in interest for a long time, and it had dropped. But that's, it says, when it really began to drop. And by the late 2000s, membership had dropped to about 62% and has continued to fall. He goes to identify, he says the decline in membership coincides with the rise of the so-called nuns. Now that's spelled N-O-N-E-S, not N-U-N-S, but they're called the nuns, those who claim no religious affiliation. Gallup reports about 1 in 5 Americans, that is 21%, is a nun, making them as large a group as evangelicals or Catholics. Other polls put the number at closer to 30%, and few nuns belong to a house of worship. Gallup also found a decline in membership at churches, synagogues, and mosques among religious Americans who make up 76% of the population. Younger Americans are increasingly disconnected from organized religion. The number of older Americans who are members of a house of worship has also declined in recent years. In the time from 2008 to 2010, 73% of traditionalists, Gallup's term for Americans born before 1945, were church members. That number has dropped to 66% in these traditionalists between 2018 and 2020. Membership among baby boomers, that's what I am, dropped from 63% to 58% during that time frame, as did membership among Generation X, 57 to 50%, and millennials from 51 to 36%. As each generation comes along, as you see, the numbers drop, and they're dropping dramatically. And it's been happening in the 21st century from that standpoint. Sounds pretty discouraging, doesn't it? So obviously this class is pointless, right? Why should we even bother? America isn't interested anymore. So if half the population no longer goes to church, what does that also mean? Okay, yeah. But it also, yes, exactly. There's 50% out there that is a field that we can evangelize. Not counting those who still hold church membership, who also we may be able to find and have interest in. It's in that group that we're not necessarily saying, well, we're going to pit Church of Christ doctrine against Baptist doctrine or something like that. That's not the idea. The idea is in that group, we find those people who are struggling spiritually, who have things going on in their life, the life change index we looked at, who are open to more spiritual discussion. I don't know what percentage, but there'll be a large percentage of those who say they hold church membership who only go a couple or 3 times a year. In fact, Gallup covered that in an earlier poll we looked at. They regard those who are members of a church as those who go, I forgot whether it's 3 or 4 times a year. So it's not like these people are heavily involved, most of them. So there's the opportunity to reach them with their spiritual needs. To me, the point of looking at that is to flip it and to understand how many people out there. Do you know what the population of the U.S. is right now? I underestimated it. I thought it was higher than this. I thought it was about 450 million. But I asked Google this morning, and it said the population in the United States is 320 million. So take half that. What's half of 320? That'd be 160 million. 160 million people out there who are disconnected. And again, we've talked about that in the urban environment, how many people are disconnected and who maybe have come to this urban environment who had been connected even spiritually and no longer are, who lose that. Of course, that happens a lot among college students and young adults. They move from their traditional setting into the city and never connect. And really, that's an open field for evangelism. But that's what I wanted us to see. I just wanted to take that article and to look at the other side of that. Because if you remember, we also talked about how that Gallup said 25% of the unchurched, and in that poll, he said 45% of the population are the unchurched. He said 25% of the unchurched say they would visit a church if what? What did I say? If invited by a friend. Half of those who say they're unchurched would come to church if they were invited by a friend. So, okay, what's half 160? Don't have any mathematicians in it. 80 million people out there. 80 million people. 1.2 million, the population of Hillsborough County. Half of that's 600,000. Half of that is 300,000. There are 300,000 people in this county who come to church if a friend invited them. Now, I know none of you know 300,000 people, but you do have a circle of influence, and it is bigger than you think. So the potential is there, the opportunity is there, and we can do that now. I am looking forward so much for JP to get here, but he's going to help us do that more and to be more involved in doing it, even as he himself does it. He has about 12 Bible studies going on right now where he is. Now, if we could just double that among the members, think about having 25 Bible studies going on at once and the potential of bringing people to Christ. That's our potential. That's our opportunity. And there's a role all of us can play in that if we'll make the commitment to do that. Okay? Any thoughts or comments? Question. Anybody have any questions about JP and his coming in Chelsea? Okay. Well, part of what someone who is experienced at teaching Bible studies learns to do and needs to do is to take someone with him who wants to learn with him or her and develop that in that way. Before we finish this class, I hope we have time, we're going to talk about ways to study with someone. Most of you in here could actually now study with someone. What I'm finding in talking to guys today now, which is different from, for the most part, what I've done in the past, is they study a book with them. And they have a book of the New Testament that in which they can emphasize what commitment to the Lord is. And things like that. One uses 1 Peter, one uses Luke, one starts in Ecclesiastes, and trying to teach about we all have a place, a hole in our life, even if we don't realize it, that's spiritual. All these kinds of things that they can talk about. But then also one of the things that I've always found extremely valuable, and at least one of these I talk to, is they start, and people are interested in this, getting a whole overview of the Bible. How does it all fit together? What is the book about? And it's a great opportunity then to teach them the whole scheme of redemption and see what the Bible is about, tie it together. And you can do that in a couple of sessions. But actually, most of you can do that with a little training and background and an outline. Most of you can do that with somebody and emphasize the right things as you go along and show them how the books of the Bible fit together. That's a great starting point. It's been one of the places I've most started at when I was teaching people. But people have an interest. I mean, the people we will have the greatest success with, and I'm not saying that this is all you look for, you're looking for many things, are those who are curious about the Bible or who would like to study the Bible. You're already qualifying people there at an interest level. This is why some guys, Don Bunning is who I first talked to, who was doing this up in New York City and New Jersey, is they actually start a website that's just about getting Bible studies. And they have ways of advertising that, getting the word out. They do it through Google. We have one person here who I know is experienced in geofencing, which is another way of reaching out to a specific area in an area and advertising, but getting people to the website and people following it, to get a list of people signing up on the website, creating an email list, several things you do, and set up Bible studies. Don's had great success with that. JP started doing that just this past year and is getting most of his studies through that. So again, the potential is there, and finding those who are interested in the Bible, curious about the Bible, would like to study the Bible, are great prospects because they tell you already they have a spiritual interest. They're looking to know more from that standpoint. So that's a great opportunity too. So these are the kind of things we're going to work on. We're going to set up our church website, where part of it is pointing people to a Bible study website like that, where they can click and go there and find out more about studying the Bible. So those are things we're hoping to do, as well as training us all. Okay. Profile of a prospect. How many of you am I going to have to send home today? I really want you to do this, folks. I want you to spend time with it because it's great training for yourself in doing this. Who's got a friend, a prospect? Of course, this morning we might use as an example. Somebody want to volunteer? Okay. Yeah. She'd probably appreciate being called a girl. Yeah, she would. Yeah. I got this bad habit as I've gotten older, referring to all the ladies as hun, and that's probably not good. I don't know why I started doing that, but I do. Okay.
She goes to the gym. I go in the morning. She's a manager.
All right, let me write up here. She's a gym manager. What'd you say her age? Okay, what'd you say, early 20s? Okay.
And her name's Maria. She's very social and outgoing, and so I go there in the mornings, and there's a lot of people there, and so just talk with her, and she has a very her nature's very inclined to spiritual.
Is she single or married?
She's single.
Okay, she's single. All right. Crunch. I'll have all these names to come up with. They're getting almost as interested as beauty shops in their names, you know, cut and curl and all this kind of stuff. Okay. All right. So you've had contact with her. Do you know any other Christians that go to that gym that may know her?
No.
Okay. So what would you gauge her level in spiritual things right now, would you say, or if you had any discussion? Or
I think that she would be inclined to spiritual interaction.
all right.
right now we're foundational forming.
Got you. Now, frankly, what's going to be a barrier you might have to break down in this?
Well, she's a female and I'm a male.
There you go. Exactly. She thinks you're interested in it. And you may be. I don't know. She may be cute. But what I'm saying is that's a barrier you have to consider and think about that and how you approach it in dealing with that. And a lot of times these are types of barriers we have to overcome in order to get a study going from that standpoint. Let me see what else we might talk about. Do you know of anything in her life maybe that she's having trouble with or struggling with or dissatisfaction at this point that she's expressed?
She seems somewhat as an
Isolated? Okay.
Maybe emphasizing she could come and have a study with me and there'd be other folks there, including indirectly influencing people.
How could he invite her in a non-threatening way? What could he invite her to in a non-threatening way? Well, I think that'd be more one-on-one.
Maybe not.
Huh?
Maybe so, maybe not. I mean, you can have other.
Yeah. That could. Yeah, that's right. Yes. Okay. Yeah. An invitation to church in that setting. Okay.
I would say like the most success I've had is like when I invite people to church, they kind of get turned off. They're like, oh wow, that's like a big step. But if I have a small group of people like from church and then I invite them to like that study, like maybe in my home or something, they're more likely to come because it's more like a small intimate setting, but it's not one-on-one.
There's a group of us getting together.
Yeah.
In fact, I mean, my thinking is I'm a part of a Bible study group. Would you be interested in coming to that? I get a lot of spiritual encouragement from that. And there's a lot of others, or you could say there's a Bible study group of young people getting together. Would you be interested in Bible study? It's very important to me and found it to be a great blessing in my life. Do you think you'd be interested in that? That's a more non-threatening situation. And if there's a Bible study not going on right there, just call some friends, say, we need to start a group Bible study. You can always do that. But usually there's something going on here that you can invite them to. That's a more non-threatening way, I think, of doing that. That it's she would be less inclined to one-on-one. She might be inclined. See, they look at this sometimes if they're isolated as a chance to meet other people like that. And thinking in those terms can help do that. Anyone else have an idea about that or a thought? You can even mention a specific book. We're studying the Gospel of Luke right now and about Jesus. So think through how to invite them. From your experience with them, think about what they would be interested in. Think of a non-threatening way. And it is so true, particularly in that age group. Inviting them to church, they're not interested. It's trying to get them in another way, get in that contact. Now, if you're in a situation with a business associate at work and particularly the same sex, or maybe it's inviting them and their wife or their husband to something that can be easier to establish one-on-one than really someone who's single. I think you can do that.
Even with, having access to technology, with those people that you have invited, including Maria, to that study, that would be profitable as well, because they're even be able to find the scripture that we're looking at, maybe, okay? To see, this is what scripture says. Discuss it from there.
Anytime you can work scripture into a conversation, it's good, and do it in a positive way.
Because I was saying Starbucks, we have the access to the technology.
Yeah. Websites and things like that. Of course, you don't start by saying, "Oh, you're living with a guy? Well, you're going to hell." And here, I'll show you the scripture. Of course, that's not the place to start. But something else we've had, and again, there's so many things that we're not doing now that we had been, that we're trying to reestablish. In fact, we still have some out there. I need to get them. But there are cards related to the church here that you write your name in, inviting them. But the other kind of card is one that points them to our Bible study website, or even to our church website, and hand that to them and say, "I think you'd find this interesting if you have spiritual interest." And then you follow up on that later to see if they've done that. Being able to hand them something is good. Now, what gets discouraging is you finally work up your nerve. Not used to doing this, and you work up your nerve to do that, and they say no. And your reaction is, "Well, I'm just not cut out for this." You have to ask 4 or 5 people usually to get any kind of positive response. And probably it's going to be a 1 in 10 to get a Bible study, or 1 out of 8 to 10 to get a Bible study. Just like in sales, fear of rejection is the biggest problem. All they're telling you really is, "I'm not interested right now." If it's someone you have an ongoing relationship and they say no, say, well, "That's fine, that's fine." And then you watch them and pay attention. This is what's so important. We have to train ourselves to do all the time, is you're just paying attention to where people are in their lives and what's going on in their life. The better relationship with them, the better you understand where they are in their lives. And there will be times where they're going to be more open to listen or to respond. You can't force it. You just have to have that opportunity. Okay? All right. Yeah.
Even at Crunch, would there be maybe a possibility that there's a meeting, they have a meeting room that you can set aside, or a little reserve, for something like that, They have people that really know,
But there's prayer influencers that make swimming guys who may go there every day, almost 4 years. And we also
Yeah.
anyways, I love going there, but it's a good place to invite somebody.
Yeah.
I was saying a public library as well.
Yeah. Those kind of things. This is a situation, Joseph has a lot of experience doing this in the past, but it's a situation where you cultivate the relationship. And a lot of times that's what you do. They have to come to trust you. They have to know you so that they feel comfortable in talking about spiritual things with you. Now it's a lot easier. I mean, I don't mean a lot easier, but it's not hard to just ask somebody if they're interested in a Bible study. Yeah, say, "Hey, you seem like somebody might be interested in a Bible study. We're having a Bible study. Would you like to come?" That's a simple thing to do, and you may get a response. You get a nice response. Well, I don't know. And you can, if you have a card or something to hand to them, then they can think about that. And then later, maybe get a response. Debbie?
Well, the sing that we had the other night,
Yeah, invite them to a singing.
and then they would ask questions if they came.
Something I've done in the past was announced topics on Sunday nights on things that people might be interested in at a particular time. Just many different ones. One that comes to mind right now was, this was many years ago when the problem with Catholic priests really came to the foreground about homosexuality and pedophilia and all that. Just became a huge story. And I actually preached a lesson related to that on a Sunday night. We had visitors talking about the crisis in Catholicism is what I entitled it, and went back and discussed in the lesson really what the problem was rooted in. But sometimes announced topics on things that are going on gives you, we need to give people, members, more chances of things to invite people to. We've done that. We've done invite a friend Sunday before, those kind of things. We just got to get back to. Yeah.
Especially with, maybe this is closer to a lot of people that I interact with that are younger, that, you know, we were talking about kind of this idea of the war against organized religion. So a lot of times that group of people are very much against going to things that are organized religious events, right? Sometimes that could even include something as simple as a singing. So a lot of times with them, you know, it helps to just start with individual conversations, you know, because you're trying to draw that line between the focus is truth versus, hey, I want you to come to church with me. I want you to join my church. I want you to be part of this group. I want you to conform to this ideology, right? Because in their head, that's already what they've been fighting against. And so a lot of times breaking that down a little bit and saying, you know, just picking a conversation topic that, you know, maybe they've noticed something different about you. You know, we can easily have those conversations at work, you know, at school, through school, with families, and, you know, things like that. There's always going to be differences between us and them just by nature of our lifestyle. Starting conversations that way.
Most of us are going to have conversations with people our own age to a great extent. That's what it's going to be. And you can identify with them about what you deal with and what they're probably dealing with, and approach them on topics like that, on being alone, what I do, problems in a relationship I'm having, and say, you know, here's what I found helped me in those situations, and turn it to biblical principles and those kinds of discussions. However, you can turn a conversation to just simply saying, not getting in a confrontational thing, but just saying, you know, here's what helped me in that. The Lord really helped me in that with basic principles. And it plants a seed in their mind, even if you don't get further about maybe there's something to this. Don Bunning told me in New York City, young people that were coming to him, many of them were coming because their life was getting in a mess and they knew they had to do something, or else they saw their friends' lives really getting in a mess and they didn't want that to happen to them. And many of the contacts he was getting were people getting turned off by the lifestyle they saw around them and reaching out. And those people, of course, we want to try to find from that standpoint.
I think, right, like it's easier to talk to people like our own age. I would say that's where, like I have the most experience with, but something we've talked about, it gets a little more difficult when you're trying to talk to someone like his grandparents, where there's like a generational, and there's this level of respect, but it's like, how do you cross that boundary of talking to them and teaching them, you know?
Yeah, that's the step. We're out of time. But let's talk about that, about how you make that step over, because it is hard. And it many times it is just saying, again, that idea of a bunch of us studying the Bible that on things that really help with that. Would you like to come join us for a while, and do that, things like that? Okay, well, we got to stop so that any of it can get to the 11 o'clock here. Next Sunday, I'm going to play an interview with Carrie Keenan from Temple Terrace. Carrie works in very much an environment like ours, and he's having great success. And we're going to have that interview. I'm supposed to preach next Sunday, so that'll give me where I don't have to preach, do a Bible class, and preach again. So that'll work for me. Okay? All right. Thanks, guys.